Hello and welcome to the Trust Factor Podcast, the only podcast that guarantees your success when you implement its divine age-old teachings. Hey everybody, thanks for joining. Glad you could make it. We are deep into the book, The Garden of Emunah by Rav Shalom Arush. It is an amazing book, guys. It is just getting started. If you can believe it, it's going to get better. Every single page is worthy of discussion. Every paragraph is really worthy of discussion. Let's finish off the saga that was the parking tickets in Jerusalem. We'll put that to bed and we'll continue moving forward. That came to an end. And the way that it came to an end is probably not the way you expected. There's no dramatic unfolding here. It was mine. It wasn't mine. There was no clear-cut decision. And do you know why that is? By now, you should have figured it out. The reason that this is the case, that it is left in suspension, is because the creator knows exactly what's going on, even with the podcast and even with the fact that you guys are trying to figure out where this thing is going to end. And as a result, there is a lesson, and he's not going to let that lesson go to waste. Here's how it goes. I received a response from the government office, and they sent me copies of all 3 tickets, including the one in question, the 250 shekel. It turns out that I received that ticket, not just on the day I arrived, but within a half an hour of arriving at our Airbnb. I remember distinctly parking on the side of the road and sitting in the car while my family unloaded the luggage to take it upstairs. I didn't want to leave the car alone because I knew that we were in a bad spot. And in fact, the parking garage attendant had told me and warned me not to park there because they're giving out 250 shekel tickets. And I said, it's fine. I'm not leaving. I'm staying with the car. Apparently, somehow, that doesn't matter. I don't know, and I'm done asking. I know that I was there. It was the second that we arrived. I literally nailed it down to the minute that we arrived and started unloading our luggage. Now, am I going to go to bat? Heck no. It's not going to happen. Am I going to start to worry about it? It's not happening. Am I going to even let it occupy 1% of my brain space? It's done. The only reason that it has even happened, in my opinion, is to be able to benefit this podcast and the listeners, to understand that there are so many different approaches to life, that there are still some people who would dig their heels in and say, no, not on my watch. I'm going to make phone calls. I'm going to figure out how to fight this thing. Nobody came to give me a ticket, yada, yada, on and on and on. That's not me. I've already justified this, as I've explained in previous episodes, to understand that there are many reasons why I'm perfectly content allowing this ticket to proceed. And I've moved on with it, really. I didn't expect to get a response from the government offices just based on how difficult it was to get a hold of them by phone. But it turns out they were pretty efficient, actually surprisingly efficient in responding to emails. So let that also be a note to all you guys, a little lesson. If you're ever in Israel and you need to deal with government bureaucracy, send emails. Number one, it's better also because you document your concern, and that document doesn't ever go away. So it's important. If you're really going to follow up on something, especially government related, make sure that it is in writing. Anyways, we put a pin in that. That's how it ends. You decide how you would have gone and how you would have proceeded from this point forward. You know my position. Let's put a pin in this concept. It says people are the same way, limited in their perception. They don't see an iota of the picture in its entirety. They don't know the past of each soul, its account of credits and debits, or what it needs to rectify. No one knows the background details of why one person's circumstances in life are more difficult and why others have an apparently more advantaged life. If a person had spiritual eyes that could see, he would know that everything is administered in absolute justice and precise accounting, and he would have no questions. That's the reality. We don't have eyes to see the past. We don't know what the accounting ledger looks like. If we did, we would know that we got off almost scot-free. We would be thrilled to know what little we need to pay in order to pay our debts. The mission. A person comes to this world to perform a mission. His life in this world is not his permanent life. It begins and ends in accordance with the task that person must accomplish. You hear this? His life begins and ends in accordance with the task. A lot of people think when you're done achieving your stated purpose in this world, that's when he plucks you out of the world. And that's just half of it. The other half is when you're brought into the world. There is a saying, a very popular saying. I don't know who it's attributed to. It's been misappropriated a few times, so I'm not going to attribute it to anybody. But the saying is that your birthday is the day that God decided that the world could not exist without you. Very simple. Not that he wanted you here on your birthday, but that all of existence could not exist if you had not come into the world on that very specific day and time. That's how he runs this world with absolute precision. The world in its entirety would fail to exist if you weren't brought into the world. And the same thing happens when you exit the world. It is all calculated perfectly. Not just that you have to accomplish your tasks, but you have to accomplish them at the exact precise time in human history. Now, the end is different for everybody. Some people come here for 10 years. Some people come here for 1 year. Some people don't make it to the first year, and some people make it to 100 years. Everybody is different. What determines the length of our stay is multiple factors. And those factors include previous existences. Let's keep reading. It says, when a person dies, even though it may look like an accident, it is the result of divine decree at the exact same time that the Creator determined. One comes to the world to perform a 70-year mission, and someone else comes to the world to perform a 20-year mission. One person doesn't complete his original allotted lifespan, while someone else obtains added days, months, or even years to his lifespan. The considerations are many and mind-boggling, based on debits and credits, past lives, and more, all hidden from our field of vision, like we've said many times. You know, there are people who come into the world and they literally go within weeks. And it seems like an absolute tragedy. And in fact, it is, because a potential has been taken away from the world at a very, very young age. It hasn't even had the chance to experience life. But that's not its purpose. Its purpose wasn't to come into this world to experience life and to go through childhood and to go through adulthood and to go through tribulations and to get married and have children and buy a house and have a business and work for someone. That wasn't its designated purpose. We don't know what its purpose is. Today, in our lives, when things happen, we require purpose. We require an explanation. It gives us a sense of closure. If we don't have that explanation or purpose as to why something happened, especially, God forbid, the death of an infant, it could tear us apart. That's probably one of the most difficult things a human being, especially a parent, could have to ever deal with. And so we need some form of closure. Now, I want to bring this to our present day. Today, we have this thing called SIDS. You may have heard of it before. It's called Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. It's been around for a very, very long time. And it's so common, unfortunately, that you may even know somebody who's lost a child to this tragic issue, to this tragic concept called SIDS. I call it a concept and not a disease or illness, because doctors themselves will tell you they have no idea what it's caused by. That's why they call it sudden infant death syndrome, meaning we have no idea what's causing this. Now, I just read an article last week that says that, and this may be controversial, I'm not saying it to be controversial, but here's reality. 80% of deaths attributed to SIDS was caused within 1 week of getting childhood vaccines. More than that, there was a study that was conducted in Japan. In Japan, because of their concern with childhood vaccines, they delayed giving children vaccines until the age of 2. And as a result of that, this thing called SIDS no longer exists in Japan. Do you understand? That's not something to be taken lightly. That's not something to brush off like a coincidence. They've eradicated this thing called SIDS by simply postponing childhood vaccinations to the age of 2. But because we need an answer, we need closure, God allows them to put a label on it and give us an explanation. But the real reason that that child went away is because that was his time. That was the time for this child to depart the world. It came in for a short visit. It had to do something very specific in order to complete its task. And in his mercy, he says, I'm not going to leave you here to suffer for 80 or 100 years. I'm going to take you right back to the world of truth. I'm going to take you right back to the place which is true and pure and good, right beside Hashem. That's what he does with this pure child. He brings him in, fixes his tikkun, fixes his purpose, and plucks him right back out as a mercy, as a gift to this neshama. To those who left behind, it's a tragedy. It's difficult, especially when they don't have the knowledge that I'm sharing with you now, especially when all they can do is chalk it up to this thing called SIDS. I know it's a sore topic, especially in the last few years since COVID. Everybody's losing their minds around this concept of vaccines. I get it. We need to live a life of awareness. You can't run and hide from reality. Face it head on. Deal with it, and you will always be better off. One of the points of mentioning all this is for a lot of people who make government their gods. The leaders that be, governments and institutions and teachers and mentors, that somehow these people are the ones who have clarity, moral clarity and social clarity, and in reality, they are so far removed. It's run by human beings, and every human being has an evil inclination. And so they are no different. In fact, they may even have more of an evil inclination because of the positions that they are in and that we entrust them with. The lesson here, my friends, is that things aren't always as they seem. There is always a basic answer, a simple, basic understanding of the things that happen to us, but there are always deeper, more powerful, more real explanations. Those are the ones that you should always be striving for, because the surface ones, they're never going to cut it, my friends. Have an amazing day. Thank you for spending time with us on the Trust Factor podcast. If you've heard something today that moved you, save this episode and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming conversations that challenge, empower, and uplift. And if you're on social media, connect with us. Leave your thoughts. Drop a quote that resonated with you. Hashtag the Trust Factor podcast. Until next time, keep growing in your trust and keep living with purpose. I'm Jesse Revivo, and this has been the Trust Factor Podcast. Thanks for listening.